The silver tray slipped from her trembling hands, crashed against the marble floor, and sent a shower of crystal glasses skidding beneath the feet of the richest people in the city. For one terrible second, nobody moved. Then came the laughter. The maid stood frozen in the middle of the billionaire's garden, her face burning with shame, while a woman in a dazzling red gown pointed at her, as though she were something dirty that had wandered into the wrong world. But what happened next silenced every person there, because the billionaire boss did something no one expected. He walked past the woman in red, past the shattered glass, and knelt beside the maid. Before we continue, if stories about second chances, kindness, and unexpected justice touch your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes people deserve dignity, and subscribe to Bright Hearts for more stories about second chances. The maid's name was Rosa, a quiet woman in her 40s who had learned long ago that survival sometimes meant becoming invisible. She worked in the mansion from sunrise until well after midnight, polishing marble floors, carrying trays, washing delicate crystal, and quietly cleaning up after people who rarely looked at her face. She had a daughter studying in another town, and every coin Rosa earned went toward keeping that child in school. Her own shoes were worn thin, her hands were rough from years of work, and she often ate dinner standing in the kitchen because sitting down felt like a luxury she could not afford. That evening, the mansion was glowing beneath hundreds of golden lights. The billionaire owner, Adrian Vale, was hosting an enormous charity celebration for investors, politicians, actors, and old money families. The garden looked like something from a dream, with fountains sparkling beneath the moon and musicians playing softly near the terrace. Rosa had spent hours preparing for the event. She had carefully arranged champagne glasses on silver trays, checked the table settings twice, and even repaired a torn tablecloth because the head housekeeper had threatened to deduct the cost from her wages. Then the woman in the red gown arrived. Her name was Celeste Harrington, the daughter of a powerful family, and someone who had spent her life believing that wealth gave her permission to judge everyone around her. She moved through the party as though the mansion belonged to her. People stepped aside when she passed. She laughed loudly, accepted compliments easily, and made sure everyone noticed the diamonds around her neck. When Rosa approached with the tray, Celeste suddenly stopped. One of her expensive heels had caught on the edge of the carpet, and instead of blaming the uneven carpet, she blamed Rosa. She accused the maid of walking too close, of being careless, and of nearly ruining her dress. Rosa immediately apologized, lowering her eyes as she had been trained to do. But Celeste was not finished. She loudly demanded that Rosa apologize properly, in front of everyone. The conversations around them began to fade as guests turned toward the scene. Rosa swallowed hard and apologized again. Celeste looked her up and down and mocked her uniform, her worn shoes, and even the way she spoke. Then she deliberately brushed against the tray in Rosa's hands. The glasses crashed. The garden fell silent. Rosa stared at the broken crystal around her knees. Her first thought was not about herself. It was about her wages. She knew exactly how much those glasses cost, and she knew she could never repay them. Celeste raised her voice, telling everyone that incompetent servants had no place at an elegant event. A few guests looked uncomfortable, but nobody stepped forward. Some simply watched. Others whispered. Rosa's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to cry. She had cried enough in kitchens, laundry rooms, and buses after exhausting shifts. She would not give this woman the satisfaction of seeing her break. Then footsteps approached. Adrian Vale had been speaking with several investors on the opposite side of the garden. He had seen enough to understand what had happened. He walked toward Rosa with a calm expression that somehow felt more powerful than shouting ever could. Celeste immediately changed her tone and tried to explain that Rosa had been careless. Adrian did not answer her. He walked straight past her. Then he did the unthinkable. The billionaire knelt on the marble floor beside the maid. A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Adrian carefully picked up the largest pieces of glass himself. He noticed the tiny cuts on Rosa's fingers and gently told her to stop touching the shards. Rosa looked at him in disbelief. She had spent years cleaning up after wealthy people, but no wealthy person had ever helped clean up after her. Adrian stood and looked around the garden. His voice remained quiet, but everyone heard him. He said that a person's worth was never determined by their uniform, bank account, family name, or social position. He said the most shameful thing that evening was not a broken tray. It was watching someone being humiliated simply because she had less power. Celeste tried to protest, but Adrian finally turned toward her. He told her that the invitation she had received was for a charity event built around helping people who were struggling, not for humiliating the people who served them. He then asked security to escort her from the property. Nobody laughed now. Nobody whispered. Rosa stood completely still, tears running silently down her cheeks. But Adrian was not finished. He announced that every member of the household staff would receive a significant raise, paid medical coverage, and educational assistance for their children. He said the mansion would no longer treat employees as invisible workers, but as people whose labor made everything possible. Then he turned to Rosa and told her that the broken glasses would not come out of her wages. Rosa finally broke down. Not because she was ashamed, but because for the first time in years, someone had noticed how hard she had been trying. The next morning, Rosa expected everything to return to normal. Instead, Adrian called her into his office. He had learned that she had once dreamed of opening a small catering business, but had abandoned the dream after her husband died, and she needed steady income for her daughter. Adrian offered her something she never imagined receiving. He offered to fund a small catering company in her name. Rosa thought it was a joke. It wasn't. He explained that he had watched her during the event. Even while being humiliated, she had worried about the damage, the guests, and her employer instead of herself. That kind of responsibility could not be taught in a business school. It came from character. Months later, Rosa stood outside a small but beautiful catering kitchen bearing her own name. Her daughter had graduated with honors and returned home. The first major order came from a charity organization, and Rosa spent the entire night preparing food with tears of gratitude in her eyes. She never forgot the shattered glasses. She never forgot the red dress. Most importantly, she never forgot the moment a billionaire knelt beside a woman everyone else had decided was beneath them. And Adrian never forgot it either. Years later, when people asked him about the greatest investment he had ever made, they expected him to mention a company, a hotel, or a billion-dollar acquisition. Instead, he smiled and said it was the day he invested in someone who had almost forgotten her own worth. Rosa's story became a quiet reminder that dignity should never depend on wealth, beauty, status, or power. Sometimes the person everyone ignores is carrying the strength that could change an entire room. Sometimes one act of cruelty reveals the hearts of many, but one act of kindness can restore someone's faith in humanity. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness matters, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope on a difficult day. And before we end, comment, kindness still matters, if you believe no person should ever be humiliated because of their job, clothing, or financial situation. Because sometimes the greatest people in the room are not the ones wearing diamonds or expensive suits. Sometimes they are the ones kneeling quietly on a marble floor, holding broken pieces together, wondering whether anyone will notice their pain. And sometimes, all it takes is one person brave enough to kneel beside them and remind them that they were never invisible.